to what is required us to teach in the state of Iowa. So let me go into more detail about the priority learning targets. The priority learning targets are your main concepts of geometry. These are the types of things that you would see on your spiral tests in class or the trimester final. These are going to be tested multiple times throughout the year, approximately 2 to 4 times. Each one of these learning targets has been recognized as important in geometry, and there are multiple skills per learning target that will need to be achieved in order to become proficient in that learning target. Proficient means have a score of 3. So if you notice down here, these priority learning targets can have a score of 0, 2, 3, or 4. 0 means that nothing has been shown to the teacher. Either the student was absent, the student had no clue what they were doing and left the problem blank, or the student put something down on the test but it had nothing to do with the question. 2 means the student is still working towards proficiency. It wasn't quite, the solution wasn't quite correct. It may have had a mathematical error. They may have had the right process but didn't know how to finish the problem. They could get it started, that type of thing. And then a student is proficient means that they have mastered all of the skills under that priority learning target that we wanted them to know. And then a grade of 4 means that the student went above and beyond what we felt was proficient. Again, these types of learning targets are going to be listed individually in the grade book. And each of these will be listed out of 4 points. So here is an example of a unit of study. So again, this is still that chapter or unit 4 that I showed you previously. I'll flip back to that really quick. So I showed you the unit of study example. So we had 5 priority learning targets in this unit of study. What each student will receive beyond this document is a even more detailed sheet. And these are all the skills under each learning target that they will need to know. So for example, for this learning target, there are 3 things under that learning target that we feel is very important in geometry or to be successful in geometry. So as you take the spiral tests, we are going to continue to have questions on all 3 of those skills on these tests, and they will receive a score for that question. And we will use a rubric to score each one of those questions, and their score will be listed as the number of times that we test over it. Again, these learning targets are going to be spiraled, so that's why we have 4 different columns here. These skills or these questions are what they will see on a test. So anything that is shown on here will be fair game for a test, and that will also help the students prepare for their tests when they come every 2 weeks. These questions are going to be similar to those that they would see on a chapter test or an ACT exam, SAT exam, or an ITED. Now, in order to become proficient for a learning target, they will have to have a score of 2 times. So after testing that learning target 2 times, they must receive a 2 twice in order to become proficient. So that might not make sense quite yet. So let's look at this example. In this learning target, this first skill, the first test that we had, the student got a 2. The second test we had, the student scored a 2. And then the third time, a student scored a 1. In this scenario, since the student received a score of 2 twice out of the 3 times that it was tested, they have become proficient in this skill. So we have checked it off. That is the requirement. If we look at this next scenario, this green scenario, the first time the student didn't quite grasp the concept, but on the second time it was tested, the student got it right, and then the third time it was tested, the student got it right as well. So this means that the student also is proficient in this skill, so they received a check mark, and they are proficient because they scored 2 twice out of the 3 times that it was tested. Now, if you look at this third skill for this learning target, the first time they got it right, the second time it was tested, they didn't do so hot, and then the third time it was tested, they didn't do so hot as well. So in this case, the proficiency was not achieved, and so we did not give them the check mark. So again, in order to be proficient, out of the number of times that we test them, the student must receive 2 scores of 2 in order to receive that check mark. So in this case, if in the grade book you would see a score of 2 in the grade book because this student is not proficient. It has not received all 3 check marks. When the student receives all 3 check marks for this learning target, we will change the grade in the grade book to a 3 out of 4. So here is the rubric that we will be using. A score of 2. So each question on the test will be graded separately, and we will use this scoring rubric for every question on the test. So if you receive a score of 2, the student has nailed the skill and was picture perfect. All work was shown, answer was boxed and labeled appropriately, and no errors were made. If a score of 1, the student understood everything about this, or something about the skill, but not everything. Errors were made, all partial work was shown, and some of it was incorrect. And a score of 0, students showed no evidence for the problem, meaning they left it blank, they were absent, or they had no idea what they were doing. So again, this is the learning target grading rubric that we will use on your tests and quizzes that are given in class. So again, just to recap, in order to become proficient and earn a 3 out of a 4 in a grade book for one learning target, you must complete all of the check marks, or all of the skills on your checklist. So let's say you have become proficient in the learning target. Can you show the teacher that you know more, that you want to go for the 4 out of 4? Of course, and this is how you're going to do it. Each test is going to have a section where we're going to have proficiency plus opportunities for students to show us if they know more than the proficiency level. And if a student would like to show the proficiency plus before or after a test is taken, they can request that by filling out a proficiency plus request form that's found in the room, and it needs to be filled out at least 2 days prior to when they want to take that assessment, so we have enough time to get a significant question prepared for them. Now, a student must be proficient in that learning target prior to taking this. If a student is not proficient in that learning target and they're requesting to do a proficient plus, they cannot do that. Now, if they just attempt it on the test, they can go ahead and do that. But if they want to do it outside of class time, they have to be proficient in that learning target before they can do it outside of class. Other information about proficiency plus questions. In order to receive credit, your solution must show all of your work, be mistake-free, and it must be picture perfect. Not all learning targets in the unit of study will have a proficiency plus opportunity, as you will see on your checklist, and that information is what you will receive at the beginning of each unit. And proficiency plus questions per learning target may be only tested once per day.